a rare Saturday appearance by Joe Rayo and Joe Cioffi. But we've got things going on, so here we are. And we'll be giving you the latest on Hurricane Lee, Tropical Storm Margaret, and what could be another day of severe weather, which has been particularly vicious the last couple of days over parts of the interior Northeast. So let's get the show rolling. What show is that, Joe?
Joe and Joe.
Weather show brought to you by Omni True
Yes.
Value. Yes, Omni True Value Hardware, 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Mulch topsoil sand. This winter, it's salt for snow melt, and a good idea to use this time to assess what your status is with regards to hurricane preparedness. Are you prepared and you need some things? Hardware-wise, you can get them all at Omni. They have the best prices in town. 631-756-1125 is the phone number, and of course the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Tempest by Weatherflow. Nice to have a weather station in place if there's a hurricane coming your way. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned at the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you use the coupon code I want a weather station for anything you purchase from the Tempest website, you get
10% off.
Hi, it's Saturday midday. Here we are at 12 noon, and welcome to everybody on the chat board for this midday show. And for those of you who are lurking in the background, including you folks at WPC and SPC, who are probably just waiting to hear what we have to say about thunderstorm development today, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And turn your notifications on because we are on Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35 p.m. So we'll be back tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. And today, as I said at the beginning, is a special Saturday appearance because we've got Hurricane Lee, which surprised everybody in two directions, Joe. It surprised everybody by becoming a Category 5 hurricane for a few hours and then weakened down to a Category 2, thanks to some unexpected wind shear.
Yeah, just when you think you have it all figured out, Mother Nature says, nah, you don't. And, we had projections a couple of days ago of this thing being a major hurricane right straight on through the entire forecast period, 150, 160. I even saw 180 at one point. And then all of a sudden, as if somebody punched a little hole in the balloon, the thing, and it didn't completely shrivel up completely. It's still a fairly potent storm, but it certainly is not anywhere near the robust storm that we saw 24 or 30 hours ago when it was, as you just mentioned, Joe, at Cat 5.
Right, and I honestly don't think it's ever going to get back to that. But it does look like the shear has diminished some this morning. So, and there's still plenty of time for this to get back to they're carrying it as a 115, which is a Cat 3. So that might be pushing it a little bit at this point. But it still could get back up to a Cat 4. And then, and I was thinking about this today, that it's not often that weather models, we was looking at the GFS yesterday, and I'm seeing where the GFS was taking it up toward Atlantic Canada, maybe some risk to easternmost New England. But it's in one of those modes right now where it's just kind of zeroed in on this spot. I mean, it's rare that we look at something that's out at 198 hours and think that, that's where the solution is going to be. That's still plenty of time for models to maneuver in both directions. But I just kind of think that this is one of those times where the models kind of, well, the GFS in particular, zeroes in on a certain thing, and it's not going to waver very much from there.
Well, on the latest discussion from National Hurricane Center, they said that one of their problems in trying to put a prog chart up for where this is going or where it may go is the difference between the GFS and the European model, in that there's as much as 150-mile difference between the two per day. So that's, it looks like the European is trying to curve this now further out to the east and
Right.
away from the Atlantic seaboard. But the GFS, at least the one we had last night, still is bringing it much closer to the coast. And in fact, now, if things are slowing down a little bit, this may very well not hold. But from what I was looking at last night, it looked like that maybe by this time next Saturday, that down East Maine and Nova Scotia would be uh, getting, if not a direct hit, but a
Something.
very close call from Lee. But now, we're waiting on the new GFS. It's the 12Z run is coming out even as I speak to you now. So we'll see what that comes out with.
Well, it's far enough out. So why don't we get, let's start with that. And then I don't want to not leave out the fact that we do had yesterday, Thursday afternoon, Friday afternoon and evening, and now again today. This is going to be the third day in a row where we're going to see thunderstorms develop in this tropical air mass that's along the eastern seaboard. And the thunderstorms the last couple of days in some places, Joe, have been particularly vicious.
Yeah, we yesterday was interesting. We had what I would call grumbles of thunder locally here in Putnam Valley from about 3 o'clock, or just before 3 o'clock, to about 4:30. Nothing was happening, but over that time span, over that 90 minutes, the grumbles were getting louder, and the sky slowly but surely was getting darker until finally, by about 4:30, it really, really was dark, but we still weren't getting very much. And then all of a sudden, as if somebody had taken a knife to a zip bag filled with water,
Yeah.
all of a sudden it came pouring down and continued to pour down for about an hour or so, more than an hour or so. And lots of tree branches down locally, and not tree limbs, but we did hear of reports not too far from where I am of trees coming down and all kinds of mayhem. So that's what we had yesterday, and it wouldn't be out of the question that we would see something like that again today or during this afternoon.
Peter C. on the chat board says dew point in Massapequa on Long Island is 76.2, and he just calls that disgusting. Yeah, I think that's probably a good, that's probably a good adjective to lay on this. The dew points have been utterly ridiculous. People, I have to laugh because, I'm here in Northeast Georgia, and the dew points are always usually in the upper 60s and low 70s every day, but I'm sorry, it feels nothing, absolutely nothing like when the dew points in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states get up into the mid 70s. It actually is reasonably bearable here. By the way, I think I must have got down into the 50s this morning. I didn't check what my actual low was, but I'm thinking um, we got down into the 50s. Um, okay, so Joe stepped away for a second here. Not exactly sure why. Oh, there he goes. He's back. Everything okay?
Mrs. Rayo apparently summoned me upstairs, and I just stepped away to tell her on the intercom, "You forgot, dear, that we're in the midst of doing Joe and Joe right now." She's running around like a chicken out of head because this is the first day of the big German fest that her German club, is sponsoring, and she's probably going to be leaving very shortly. And she probably wanted to know if I could help her load stuff into the back of the SUV or whatever for her.
Which of course you said no.
Ah,
Oh, good Lord. I get myself into so much trouble. All right, I'm going to get the satellite loop up here. I have a satellite loop up on the screen, but suddenly it's deciding not to loop on me. So I'm not quite sure why. So I'm just going to refresh it, and now I'll bring it up on the screen and hope that it works. Let's get that going. I found that I pulled up. Here's a shot, Joe, that I don't use too often. But I figured it might work today to some extent. So I got the full disc satellite uh, loop up. So
that's a
it's a nice looking shot.
perfect. Yeah, I mean, fantastic. So you not only got the two tropical cyclones in the Atlantic, but you got the one off in the eastern Pacific as well.
Right, and you can see. Uh, so on the
And even
far,
effects, even the residual effects of Adalia up near the upper right,
yes,
full of clouds. So
yeah, still there, still lurking about, as I like to say. So here we are. The thing is still loading frames up, so just give it a moment. It'll its thing. I don't. I guess maybe because this type of satellite picture has a lot of data involved. The more frames I load, the more problematic it's going to be.
remember, you remember like 40 years ago, like back in the late 70s, early 80s, we'd be sitting there waiting on the fax machine to get a satellite picture,
Yeah,
which wasn't exactly high definition, let's put it that way. And can you imagine how what we would think to be able to see this 40 years later
and basically for free.
and for free? That's
Uh,
right. I mean, don't forget, I mean, at the weather service, at the company that I was working for, we pay hundreds of dollars a month for the phone lines coming in to get those transmissions from the old die fax and faux fax and nay fax or
right,
whatever. I
right.
mean,
No, it's a whole different world.
those chemical on that chemically treated paper.
Oh, right. You're exactly with that
And we
lovely.
and then when we would have to periodically change the blade, we'd put our fingers at risk for
Oh, I know. I cut myself once on that helix.
oh god.
All right. All right. So here is well, hold on a second. This is being evil on me today. I guess this is a hard loop to have up. I also have to have a lot of other windows open so we could do the show. So anyway, let's just make do with this, and then I'll go to the tight view. But you can see Margaret on the far right. Lee, northeast of the Leeward Islands, is going to make it's a complete miss for them. It's a complete miss for the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. On the far left, you see the swirl that's off the coast of Baja California is what's left of Hurricane Hova, which became a major hurricane. And as most of these storms do out in the Pacific, they go to the graveyard to die. Now, I'm going to switch over to the tight loop of Lee, and it kind of looks the way it looked uh, late during the work week when it was just became a hurricane and it was starting to intensify. But you could see that there's not, it's kind of still a bit ragged looking from what I'm seeing on the loop. Yesterday, the shear was pretty obvious. I think the shear is not so obvious here on today's loop. So it may have finally got past the worst of it as far as the shear is concerned. It looks like the core is getting better organized, and you're seeing it looks like an explosion of thunderstorms. Although I can't see an eye, at least not yet.
No, we had that very well defined eye a couple of days ago, and yeah, the shear is obviously causing the eye to dissipate some. What are those? What are those squares I'm seeing now?
I don't know. There's probably some errors in a couple of these images that are coming through. I'm going to switch to let's see if the Caribbean. Just go to the Caribbean satellite loop here. See if we can show everybody. Actually, the shear developed. It was southwest shear that came up from South America and was pretty much blowing southwest to northeast across the Leeward Islands and right over the storm, which caused the weakening. But now it's far. I think it's far enough west, and I'm not seeing much evidence here of that shear zone existing. So that says to me that this probably will start strengthening again. Again, I don't think it's going to get back to a Cat 5, but it certainly could get to a strong Cat 3 or a Cat 4 uh, from now on because it's still not going to get far. It's not going to get to 30 north for another 4 days, maybe not until Wednesday. So it's got time.
Yes, plenty of time. And in fact, the models seem to be slowing it down. The big concern is how this is going to interact with that big subtropical high over the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and when is it going to exactly make that turn to the north and northwest in the coming days ahead.
Right. All right. So let's look at what the Hurricane Center's got on the last advisory: 20.3 north, 58.2 west, with maximum sustained winds of 115, moving west northwest at 12. You see the track is basically straight line west northwest until Wednesday morning as it gets close to 25 north, and then it takes a little bit of a sharp right-hand turn or north northwest between 8 a.m. Wednesday and 8 a.m. Thursday. So any time through this track, as long as there's no shear, gives it time for strengthening. It's still south of 30 north come Thursday morning. So um, this could get stronger again. Of course, regardless of it, it has been out there. It did reach Category 5 hurricane. So along the eastern seaboard, probably starting late tomorrow and continuing all through next week, it's going to be rough surf, rip tides, and higher than normal tides up and down the East Coast.
And beach erosion possibly
And
too.
beach erosion, yes.
You know what the definition of beach erosion is, right, Joe?
No, Joe, what is the definition of beach erosion?
That's the great terrain robbery.
Joe, I'd pray for you, but I just don't have that kind of time. All right, here are the very consistent hurricane tracking models. Okay? And I say that just going back to all of last week. They have been so tightly clustered. There's been barely 150 miles spread in the long range with these models. And they all, even the one that's the furthest to the left, which gets it to 70, actually doesn't get it to 70. It gets it to about 69 and a half and 26. Even that one recurves back north northeast and joins the party again late in the forecast period. But I mean, they're all east of 70, Joe. I mean, they're right along 68 degrees west. So you can see they're well to the east of Bermuda. This is, it's probably going to pass through roughly around the same position where Franklin was back well over a week ago. But my point is that they're all consistently west northwest right through about 96 to 120 hours, and then all of a sudden they move straight north, and that sharp turn is really based on the at the point where the ridge that's driving it westward starts to weaken, and of course we've got upper troughs coming into the eastern part of the United States where that is going to impact the motion as well.
It almost looks like once it makes that turn, and looks like it's going to be right along that 68 degree
68.
It almost looks like it's locked in a channel, so to speak, and will be heading almost due straight north from there in about 72 hours.
Yeah, I know. Anytime when we look at working with hurricanes, or you see these hurricane models when they're really tightly clustered together, you got to have high confidence that it's going to be right.
Yeah, it's if you want to look at that outlier that has it all the way as far west as 70, and take that away, I mean, virtually all the others are just going right straight up that 68 degree longitude line again in about 72 to 96 hours. So there you go.
Yeah.
If you're concerned about making landfall along the Atlantic seaboard, at least along the U.S. Atlantic seaboard, that says no, it's not. And then for Bermuda, well, it doesn't look like it's going to hit Bermuda either, but coming close enough to Bermuda so that, well, let's put it this way, I wouldn't go swimming for the next several days.
Right. Yeah, the hurricane tracking, the intensity models, starting it off with the initialization, a vast majority of them have it as a Cat 3, and you have a bunch of them that get it back to a Cat 4. One of them gets it very close to the Cat 5 line. So I think that's assuming that there's no other surprise shear, and I don't think there will be, because that stuff that was coming off of South America, that's something that happens a lot, and that's why you don't often see development in the Eastern Caribbean, because there's almost a semi-permanent shear zone that's in the Eastern Caribbean. Every once in a while it goes away, and that's when you get majors that go in there. But they're all fairly consistent, and most of them keep it as a Category 3 out of 144 hours, which is right into next Thursday, and then they start to go down. So that probably anticipates the fact that maybe at that point they're starting to become post-tropical. I want to take a look. We got enough of the new GFS out now, so but before we do that, I just want to see if there's any recons. There's one in there now. So we've got two fixes here, and it's 960 and 960 on the pressure. So it hasn't really deepened any. You see the profile of the winds. The purple is 83 knots. I don't see any flight level winds above 83 knots. So I think that 115 mile an hour sustained wind they're carrying is more a function of them trying to remain some degree of consistency. And I also, and I'll say this, also rather generous.
Well, yeah, okay. Of course, and we should point out that they're not, trying to help this along, so to speak. They're not rooting for the storm to get stronger or be stronger. It's everything is very subjective, and
Yeah.
so
Well, they
and
do
so
have a flight level wind of 100 knots. I just pulled up the recon observations here, taken at 11:10. There's a spike up there to 100 knots, so they have that, and they're carrying. What are they carrying? 100. They're carrying 100 knots in the forecast. So I guess they just decided to, you know what? Let's just put it like that. Anticipate that there's going to be some strengthening this afternoon and evening, and if it's not there now, it'll be there later today.
and that seems to be the story. And I said, if we want to show I know we have enough of it now of the GFS.
Yes, so I'm going to get it right
Following
now.
It's following along on that straight northerly course. So if I were in down East Maine right now, I would not. I would be less concerned about the possibility of a close shave or even a direct hit. Looks like it's going to be more to the east. Now, as far as Atlantic Canada is concerned, even in Nova Scotia, it looks like the storm looks like it's going to be curving away. For Newfoundland, well, that's a whole different story. So,
Yeah, I just ran the GFS out to 180 hours. By the way, one of the things I don't like about the European is the fact that it's about 2 days slower for some reason, and I'm not sure why that is, but
well,
it
that's what I was
is.
pointing out. The NA and the National Hurricane Center pointing out that the storm is, when you make comparisons between the GFS and the European, that there's about a 150-mile difference between the two per day, and that accumulates some. And yeah, the European has always been relative to the GFS. The GFS has been Mr. Speed, Mr. Fast, compared to the European. It said, all right, let's take it easy here with
Yep.
this, and that's the story with that.
Well, you see the ridge, the surface high that is southeast of Nova Scotia. It's got Lee cradled underneath it, and then the high starts to deteriorate starting on Tuesday. And also at the same time, you'll notice there's an approaching cold front into the eastern part of the United States, and that front moves offshore. We've had so many of these fronts, Joe, getting hung up right along the coast this summer. This one decides that no, it's going to go offshore, and there's probably a deep enough upper trough. And then, of course, if this is correct and this cold front passes the way the GFS has it later Tuesday night and into Wednesday, although the other models were showing something coming in for late Wednesday and then the main push. But if you don't like these 70 dew points, this will at least get rid of that. So that would be a good plus. That's a nice high coming down too. So if that's the case, and of course that shifts the alley that these weather fronts like to create offshore, and up it goes. Goes over Nova Scotia on this run. And you're right. The westernmost edge of the rain is touching down East Maine. But the core is well to the east of that and moves over Nova Scotia, and then don't have it much further out than this. You can also see, by the way, there's Margot, which is to the right of Lee, moving northward, and then it gets up west of the Azores, and then starts moving southwestward, and then it turns west and then northwest right along oh, between 35 and 40 degrees north, and then makes a recurve in the middle of the Atlantic. And while that's going on, the GFS is also showing a tropical wave moving off the coast on early next week that it develops into a tropical storm, and that's moving west northwestward toward the north, taking a track pretty similar to what Lee has taken so far. But again, I don't have much beyond this point at 198 hours. So look, we've had Franklin recurve between Bermuda and the Carolinas. We have Lee that's going to be passing between Bermuda and the Carolinas. Want to take any bets that if there's another tropical storm or hurricane following a similar path, that it's going to do the same thing?
Well, it might. I did mention, though, a couple of days ago, or the last time we were together, that for Nova Scotia, all of a sudden, Nova Scotia now, you talk about Florida or the Gulf Coast or whatever, this second year in a row, Nova Scotia may be in the crosshairs. They had Fiona last year, and now Lee is trying to make a run at Nova Scotia by the end of next week or next weekend. Although, again, the way things have been going, with that slight, ever so slight push more to the east with each passing run, who's to say? Maybe Nova Scotia will ultimately miss, and it'll just be a glancing blow. But that's still many many days down the road, and we'll see how it all plays out for them.
We have an upper trough that's from eastern Michigan down into North Florida today, and of course that's created this southerly flow along the eastern seaboard, which is feeding into the severe weather that we've been dealing with. That's going to flatten out as we move into early next week. You see Lee still moving west northwest underneath the upper ridge, and then this next trough is now forecast to be stronger as it moves into eastern Canada, draws it northwest and north, and then another trough drops down from the northern plains into Arkansas and Mississippi, and that just starts to strengthen, and that of course lifts it north and northeast toward Nova Scotia and possibly Newfoundland. But this upper pattern that's setting up for a week from now, if this is correct, is probably going to bring down some decent cool air somewhere in the eastern part of the United States overall.
Yeah, I'm seeing something here on the chat board from Christinapedia about the pronunciation of, now is it Margot, or you've been
No,
saying
Margot. It's Margot.
but what the woman who played Lois Lane?
Yeah.
Everybody called her Margot Kidder, even though she spells it Margot.
Right, but I know people that I know somebody that's Margot and pronounces it Margaret.
And is it Margaret Robbie or Margot Robbie, the Australian actress? I don't know.
I don't know.
Why could they? Why can't
Doesn't
they?
doesn't the Hurricane Center put pronunciations up?
I have not seen that, but well, anyway.
Well, look, if you wanted to make it Margot, why not just put Margot, Margo?
Yeah, but they have to.
I think they're two different names. I mean,
I
they're variations of the same name, but I don't know that they're pronounced the same.
well, everybody on the chat
All
board.
right, I'm going to say something now that I thought I would never say. Okay. All right, and maybe somebody on maybe
on
one of
NH, yeah,
well, NHC is saying Margot. Okay, then I'm wrong. I was just going to say maybe somebody on the chat board who goes forecast shopping, watches the Weather Channel and Fox Weather and all the other ones, AccuWeather and all the other ones, would be able to tell us. So they're calling it Margot, no T. All right. I stand corrected. No T. It's Margot. One nice thing about that, though, is that I don't have to pronounce it when I'm writing it. So it's spelt that way. So I got that part of the equation right. So there you go. There's your upper trough after 198 hours. And we can go back to, I just want to go back to the 6Z run really quick. And then let's take a look at what's going to happen today and tomorrow. Yeah, that's not too shabby looking a trough at 204 hours. Of course, the tropical storms are not in the picture. And I assume let's see. No, that's not. Margot on this one is out, west of the Azores. The new one appears. You see it there, and it gets to 60, and then it turns northwestward, and there it goes, makes the recurve again. This one goes over Bermuda, Joe. And the pattern at least is changing as we go into the middle and latter part of the month because it looks like the trough is coming back into the eastern part of the United States, which is good because then at least we can get rid of this miserable humidity that we've been having nonstop.
Yeah, it's been crazy, and you look at the forecast for the tri-state area, and today showers and thunderstorms and humid. Tomorrow showers, thunderstorms, humid. Monday
Showers, right? Chance of showers, thunderstorms.
It's the only day that looks like it may actually be just humid, but no real threat of any showers and storms.
At least it's not. At least the 90s are done.
Yeah,
which is a big plus.
Exactly, and then Wednesday back to humidity and showers and stuff. And hopefully later on next week, it all goes away and the drier and cooler. One thing about Lee should actually interact with that trough and actually cause the upper winds to flow more out of the northwest, both at the upper levels and also at the surface. And that should help to pull in more of a nice, cool airflow for the end of next week.
Oh, absolutely. Totally agree with that. Total agreement. It should really bring down some decent dry air toward the end of next week. In fact, why don't we just let me pull up the GFS dew points, take a look. So go to the eastern U.S., which I'm going to have to do anyway, and let's go to the dew map. Hold on, did I mess up here? GFS. There it goes, 2 meter dew. Ooh, look at that. The 384. Let's go. Let me get this. New run, 12Z. So let's look. So this is today, and of course you see the miserable brown up and down the eastern seaboard. You actually don't have to go too far away to get better dew points, and they do get a little lower tomorrow. They get down into the 60s, which is nice, and they're still in the 60s Tuesday and Wednesday. Nice compared to 70s. And here's on Wednesday, of course, you see with Lee and that cold front coming in. Dew points by Thursday morning, Joe, are in the 40s, which is great. And they were in the 40s on Friday, and they were in the 40s on Saturday, and they're still in the 40s come next Sunday. They start to come up a little bit, and then another front goes by, and then you've got another shot of nice dew points. Actually, some of that dry air gets down to me. Yippee, yippee, I could maybe paint my deck. I've been trying to do for the longest time. Okay, back to the U.S. satellite loop. So take a look at what's happening today. You can see there's already some lightning strikes at 12:33 Eastern Time going on in central North Carolina and now moving into southern Virginia. So some thunderstorms are already developing there. And you've got the upper trough and you've got the stalled front. Otherwise, from Georgia to Florida, west across the Gulf states and into the western part of the United States, it's very, very nice today. Little action up in the northern plains. And on the surface map, look at this stationary boundary. It's just sitting right there from southern Maine, right across Connecticut, over western Long Island, cuts New Jersey in half, and goes all the way down. And this is where your thunderstorms are going to develop this afternoon.
Right. And I might point out that, once again, Storm Prediction Center upgraded. I mean, originally we were just underneath marginal risk, but now they've added, I guess, based upon what they saw yesterday, they've added now the slight risk. Tomorrow, the Northeast is generally under just plain or general thunderstorm coverage. Don't be surprised, however, if after what we see today, that they might actually throw in a marginal zone and maybe even a little slight risk zone. It has been that way. They've almost like they've been playing catch up, or maybe they've just been saying, look, we know we're going to be thunderstorms. Let's see how things progress on this particular day, and then we'll play that into what we'll forecast for the day tomorrow. It's basically, folks, showery, thundery, humid today, tomorrow, Monday, and once again on Wednesday, because that weather front. Actually, there are actually two fronts, Joe. I mean, there's one boundary zone that we're dealing with right now, and then the second stronger one that's coming in for later on in the week, and that'll be the one that'll usher in that much drier and more lovely airflow that we're all looking forward to for later on in the upcoming week.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, here's the radar at 12:35 Eastern Time. So if you're watching this later today, it's a 12:35 Eastern Time radar. So if you want to get, the updated information, you go to weather.gov and go to your local National Weather Service office to get whatever latest information there is regarding severe weather. And you see there's actually a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings that are up right now in parts of north central North Carolina and south central Virginia. There's also some showers and downpours in northwest Pennsylvania and in southwestern New York State. Not a whole lot, a few dots on the radar here and there from Maine down into Maryland and northeastern Virginia, at least for now. But I pretty much think that when you pop this up at around 3 or 4 o'clock, it's going to be loaded with some storms someplace. And the other thing, by the way, is that because these storms have been particularly, they've been going on now for since Thursday to yesterday and again today, uh, some of these areas have gotten clobbered with rain. And it's localized, but nonetheless, the Storm Prediction Center has a forecast of several inches of rain for much of the eastern half of Pennsylvania and virtually all of New England. So flash flooding is a distinct possibility, and in fact, matching up with the marginal risk of severe weather that WPC has, Joe, they have a slight risk of 15 to 40% for flash flooding, and there was flash flooding yesterday in parts of northeastern Pennsylvania into north and east from there and skimming northwest New Jersey. So I would not be surprised if there'd be some localized flash flooding with these thunderstorms later on today.
No, I wouldn't doubt it either. And it's going to be one of those situations where you could get flooded out, and 5 miles up the road, they get hardly anything. I've been
Well,
seeing.
yeah, a few of the folks on the chat board have mentioned the fact. Some of the folks have mentioned that they've gotten clobbered with rain, but nearby somebody else has not, and then the reverse. They've missed the rain, and somebody else got clobbered with half a foot of rain. And again, also because it's convective here, folks, they're forecasting 2 to 3 inches, but it could certainly in localized areas be double that amount. So beware. And again, this is spread out over the next 7 days, but there's quite a bit of it that's going to be coming today with these thunderstorms, and then tomorrow, and then on and on and on. Maybe less so on Monday to an extent, but today and tomorrow still probably be at some point numerous showers and storms, and at least the rain is not continuous. As you see on the radar in the middle of the day, there's not a whole lot going on. But during the afternoon and evening, near that frontal boundary, you're going to see the stuff get fired up. Leon Probitsky hitting the tip jar, as Ken Musillo has also hit the tip jar this afternoon, because now it's afternoon. And we thank you very much for doing that.
Yes, indeed. Now I can go to McDonald's this afternoon.
Oh, very good.
I can't go to McDonald's. I've got to go to the.
You have
See,
to go.
this is why we're doing this at noontime, because Mrs. Rayo, as I mentioned, is among the people in charge of this Oktoberfest, and she has reeled in all members of the Rayo family, and including some friends of the Rayos. They're all going to be there. We're going to be there. I'm going to be there this afternoon, beginning at 3 o'clock. If you're in the neighborhood of Kramer's Pond Road in Putnam Valley, come on over and enjoy. And I don't need to have McDonald's this afternoon. I'm probably going to have a lot of bratwurst and knockwurst and all kinds of German delicacies, which are really good. And that's the one nice thing about this, is that you get authentic German food at these Oktoberfest. Oh, and by the way, Joe, we also have, for anybody who's interested, we also have beer.
Yes.
There's no shortage of beer. They've got this big beer truck, actually, I saw them rolling it in yesterday onto the ground. So if you're into that kind of stuff, you can have that as well. I don't drink beer, but
Can I ask why is it that you missed the obvious joke about all the worsts you? I mean, certainly after eating all that worst, you may not be worst for wear.
Yeah. Oh, you see, folks, and some people were chastising me about the Great Terrain robbery. There's another one right there by the other half of this so interesting comedy team.
Yes, exactly.
Biggest thing, Joe, since Crosby and Hope.
Oh yeah, but we don't have a Dolores Del Rio.
No, we don't.
All right, so here's the plan for tomorrow, folks. So we'll be on at 7:30 p.m. That's our new Sunday time. So we'll be on at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Also, I believe, although he gets, he can be so picky. Bill Goodman, if his cheese platter arrives and it's not the right kind of cheese, then he says, I'm not going to do your show tonight. I don't like the cheese. And I'm trying to also get Tony Gigi on, back on, so it'll be a 4-box tomorrow. He's in South Jersey, so he can give us the Mount Holly angle on all of this. Tony's a little bit less picky with regards to the cheese platter, Joe, but he does get a chance to show off his gateway computer, which he's still using on a day-to-day basis. So before it goes to the Smithsonian. Anthony Albens, thank you for hitting Super Chat, and thank you very much for joining my subscription platform on Patreon, which is just $2 a month to start, unless you want more personalized attention. And that's at patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Cioffi. Thank you so much, Anthony, for joining the party here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which, by the way, is about to come to an end for today. So we will see everybody tomorrow, hopefully with our special guests. You go have a great time with all your worsts.
I'm prosing. Tiki taka, oi, oi, oi.
All right, folks, enjoy your Saturday. Stay safe from the thunderstorms. And, of course, I'll be covering that on Patreon and later during the afternoon and evening hours in case any severe thunderstorm watches. Before we go, just let me check SPC because I don't know. Sometimes, they put out those mesoscale discussions, and sometimes they'll alert you. Was there a watch box that went up yesterday? I know there was one on Thursday, but I drove to Mississippi yesterday and back.
We had a watch box that it actually was one of those. If you look at I like to look at the aviation boxes, although
right.
Sometimes they put counties outside of the box. But it was all the way from southeast Pennsylvania, New Jersey, straight up. Then it stopped, and then they started another box which adjoined it, which continued on up into New England. So yeah, we were in a watch zone area yesterday afternoon. Joe.
All right, yeah, I was I did a round trip to Mississippi yesterday. I went to see my mom, so it's 6 hours, 6.5 hours going there, 6.5 hours going back. But I always stop because just about halfway, Joe. You know what's halfway between my house and my mother's house to go from North Georgia to Mississippi?
That gas station.
Buc-ee's.
Yes.
Buc-ee's. I bought a roast beef sandwich yesterday for the drive home, which was really good, and also I got from the Buc-ee's bakery. I picked up half a dozen of their gigantic chocolate chip cookies, because if you stop at Buc-ee's, you gotta get something from it aside from using the bathrooms.
At the bathroom or the rest area.
Yes.
The Quarto de Bagno.
All right. Everybody, have a great afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. I was going to say nighty-night, but that's not nighttime yet. But we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.